The House of Representatives of the Congress closed for business early on the rainy afternoon of April 12, 1945. The House Democratic leader, Sam Rayburn, stepped down from his chair and invited a friend to come by his office for a drink. "Be there around 5 o'clock, Rayburn said. Harry Truman is coming over." The Second World War was not yet over, but it was a quiet afternoon in Washington. President Franklin Roosevelt was in the state of Georgia. He was resting after his recent trip to Yalta to meet with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. The president's wife, Eleanor, was at the White House working on a speech supporting the new United Nations organization. Vice President Harry Truman was at the Senate, but he was not interested in the debate. He spent most of his time writing a letter to his mother and sister back in the state of Missouri. When the debate finished, he went to the office of House Leader Rayburn to join him for a drink. It was an afternoon Truman would never forget.
Rayburn and his other friend were talking in the office before Truman arrived. Suddenly, the telephone rang. It was the White House. A voice asked whether Vice President Truman had arrived yet. "No," Rayburn replied. "Tell him to call the White House," the voice said, "as soon as he gets there." Truman entered a minute later. He immediately called the White House. As he talked, his face became white. He put down the phone and raced out the door to find his car.
Truman arrived at the White House within minutes. An assistant took him up to the private living area for the president. Mrs. Roosevelt was waiting for him there. "Harry," she said to Truman, "the president is dead." Truman was shocked. He asked Mrs. Roosevelt if there was anything he could do to help her. But her reply made clear to him that his own life had suddenly changed. "Is there anything we can do for you?" Mrs. Roosevelt asked the new president. "You are the one in trouble now."
Within hours, the world knew the news. Franklin Roosevelt was dead. Americans were shocked and afraid. Roosevelt had led them since early 1933. He was the only president many young Americans had ever known. Who would lead them now? The answer was Harry Truman, the vice president.